Hi there, good morning. It's really good to see that you came because I guess most of us partied very hard last night. My presentation today, I hope you can see the slides, is going to have two parts. The first one is focused on this magazine, which I think most of you saw. And the truth is that there are less than 20 of them left, so if all of you from this hall are gonna rush to the merch booth to get one right now, there would not be enough of them for you. But that's fine, because it's free and open source, so you can scan the code here on the cover, and you can download the digital edition. And I guess before we get into specifics about what this is and why I made it, we should talk about who this guy is, you know? Like, I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm not the most hardcore Litecoin contributor. I've only been around for very short amounts of time. I used to be a volunteer for the Litecoin Foundation at one point, but I'm mostly a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm doing the BTCTKVR podcast, and I've also created a bunch of magazines about Bitcoin. So why did I decide to make this? And I guess that's gonna be the first topic of my talk. Well, I became a volunteer of the Litecoin Foundation in 2017. It was right around the time when they were recruiting and they were trying to get more people to work on the project. And I wrote some newsletters for them because my main skill was writing. And also, I did some beta testing for Light Wallet. I contributed to community projects. I tried Lightning on Litecoin. I was one of the first people to do that. I'm not sure if eCurrency Hodler is here, but he helped me do that at the time. And I also wrote articles about Litecoin in Crypto Globe and Crypto Insider, and then I moved to Bitcoin Magazine and I could no longer do it, but it was fun while it lasted. I was one of the first people to report the integration of Mimblewimble into Litecoin. At the time, Charlie was planning to get Beam, which is another implementation, as opposed to Grin, the one which ended up being used. And I also interviewed Charlie 4 times, not 2 times, on my podcast, and participated in the MWeb Torch. And this is a screenshot, actually, of when Charlie actually invited me to the Litecoin Slack, which was incredible at the time because I was still new in the space. And it was nice to see this guy who was on CNBC talking about what happened to the markets, acknowledge my existence by sending me this email invite to a Slack channel. It matters. It gives you some confidence. Something that I want to mention before presenting my magazine is that there's this very great book by eCurrency Hodler, and it's called Understanding Litecoin, the cryptocurrency for payments, the digital currency for payments, and it's very, very good. I recommend that you'll get it. Is there anyone in this room that got it and read it? Okay, about half of the room on this side. That's still pretty good. It's a good book. I know it was written because it was useful at the time, but I think it's also due to receive an update because there's so much more you can do with Litecoin right now. You have MWeb, you have OmniLite, you have ordinals, and a lot of interesting stuff that needs to get included there. So if someone can talk with eCurrency Hodler or finance his work to maybe work on the book for 1 more month and release a new edition, that would be very nice. But this leads us to this magazine which I created. And once again, you can get it at the merch booth if you want to get a copy. It has articles about the basics that you should know about Litecoin. First of all, it starts out with an article that's called Why Litecoin? And that one explains what's so special about this network that's been around for 13 years now and has been live nonstop. There were no shutdowns, there are no issues with the code. It just works and it's been used for payments. And it's pretty impressive because it's been declared dead so many times. And there are people who want it to die, but at the same time, it's being used. And there's a community behind it. There's a conference of people who gather here to talk about it. I think this is a sign of resilience, and these base layers tend to become very good foundations for other stuff to get built on top of them. So my magazine is equally theoretical, philosophical, but also technical, because there's going to be users who maybe want to withdraw their coins from an exchange, and you have a guide on how to pick your wallet for that, which criteria you should be using, what is important, and how you should be choosing, for example, a hardware wallet or a software wallet on your mobile or a full node, how to run a full node, how to connect your mobile wallet to your full node, how to mine Litecoin if you're into that. And in this article about mining, I also mentioned which machines you should buy, whether or not you should use a pool or you should solo mine. And it has a lot of information about this. There is also an interview with 3 of the most prominent developers in Litecoin, and it's supposed to inspire people to get started somehow, because you get to learn about their journey, and that's always useful. It's something that is going to give you the motivation to get started and maybe contribute. Because it makes no sense to wait for the Litecoin Foundation to do something. This is a decentralized project. It's community driven, and it's not about what other people do, it's about what you can do for the project. So yeah, there are 50 pages approximately of pure content that you can find within the pages of the magazine. And it's published under the Creative Commons Zero license. This means that there are no copyrights. You can do whatever you want with the content. You can copy, you can share, you can modify to make your own version, you can print it yourself, you can sell it. I'm not asking for anything, maybe just acknowledgement that I made the original, but everything else, you can start a business selling them. I don't care. The point of it is to build this infrastructure for onboarding more people, to have this educational resource that anyone can access. Because, of course, you have this very cool technology and you're going to have MWeb available on all wallets, but at the same time, if people don't know about it and don't know how to use it, it's not going to reach its potential. Now, I think that development and education tend to go hand in hand, and you need people to explain to you how new technology works. And Litecoin is this very nice fork of Bitcoin, which has this culture of embracing change and embracing more experimental stuff like Mimblewimble, which is the reason why I appreciate it, because this sort of development and experimentation is very useful in open source software and open source money. And the goal is to create an unstoppable educational resource. So even if for some reason I pass away or something, the magazine is still gonna be around and get passed around the community. And I hope that you're gonna download it and check it out. The URL is bitcoin-takeover.com/Litecoin. I also put a QR code, so if you grab your phones right now, you can scan that code, and you're gonna go to a page where you can flip through the entire magazine. You can download it locally on your device. And if you're into that, you can go to github.com/vladec/BTCTKVR-LTC. That's quite a long URL, but that's where you find the files. So if you want to get the files that you use for printing, that's the best way to do it. And I think I'll also upload the Photoshop files at one point. I don't have them. I have to ask my graphic designer to send them to me. But yeah, this is how you download it. You can also purchase a physical copy, or you can make your own. It's up to you how you're going to approach this. All hail the sponsors. I gotta thank Layer 2 Labs, Bitrefill, Locotech, LFEM, Litecoin Foundation, Light.space for supporting this beautiful work, because I'm not making any money on the sales of this magazine, but I did put some full page ads in it. In your iteration, if you want to create your own copy, you can keep them or you can remove these pages. It's up to you. But I have to give them credit because basically they financed this work, and it's very nice to be able to get paid for doing what you love and then releasing something out there in the wild with no expectation of any future returns. If you want to support my work, you can just send donations, but I'm not going to impose any cost on getting this sort of knowledge. Right now, there are 2 editions. There's this one, which is the first one that I made, and it was printed by the Litecoin Foundation. They're selling them at the merch booth. They have an edition which has the signature of Charlie Lee on the front cover, and that one goes for 1 Litecoin, and this normal one goes for $20, not $2, 20. And there's another one that you can order online from 84million.com. It's 84 in words, EITHIFOUR.com. No, 84 million, so it's a pretty long URL. But you can order it from there, and he actually made his own cover, and he also added an extra article. And this is the beauty of open source, right? I've only released this for 1 week, and then this guy, Kyle, comes along, and says, hey, I want to sell this in my shop, is that fine? And I say, you don't have to ask for my permission for it. You grab the files, you make the changes however you want. You can add your own content, you can promote your own project or company in an article that you add on top of what I have. And you can actually use that with family members, you can use that with business partners. It's up to you to figure out how you can use this sort of stuff. But I'm happy and proud to announce that this is the first time when I publicly talk with more people about it. And there are already 2 versions of it. So I don't know by this time next year how many people are gonna print them, how many editions are going to be around the world, whether or not there's going to be some translation in Spanish. I hear that some people want to do that. And it's beyond my control, and it does not require permission from myself. So you can do it whenever you want. You can print it, you can share it digitally, you can sell it if you want. I honestly don't care. And my message to you is spread the chicken wings and fly to the moon, because this is a silver pilling mechanism. You send a copy to your favorite crypto influencer, you can leave some copies in buses, taxis, hotel lobbies, dentist waiting rooms, and everywhere people relax or wait. I had a conversation with someone from Bitcoin Magazine yesterday, and they told me that when they were first starting out, they were putting magazines on the backseat of Uber cars. And they were doing this all around the world, just asking the driver for permission to put a magazine there. And then they had these customers who were getting in, and maybe they were bored or something, and they would flip through the pages and learn something new about Bitcoin. And I think you can do the same with Litecoin if you want. And you can also teach someone how to move their coins into self-custody, run a node, mine, and back up their wallet. It's important, and it's a resource that you can access. I guess if you ask someone to read a book or watch a YouTube video, they're not gonna do it. But if you put this in their hands, you open the magazine to a certain page and you say, you just follow this guide or something, it's more accessible. I think this could have been a book if I wanted, but I made it into a magazine because it's more friendly with the graphics and everything. And it doesn't require any commitment, because a book basically implies that you have to read every page. But with magazines, you can just get to the section that you find interesting. Maybe you have only 5 minutes, you're gonna take this off the coffee table, learn more about how Mimblewimble extension blocks work on Litecoin, and then you can declare yourself a much more knowledgeable person for the rest of the day. You can also donate to the project. There's this address that I set up. So far I received 11.69 Litecoins. That's a nice number. So if you ever want to send me some donations, this is where you can do it. The roadmap, because of course every open source project in the space needs a roadmap, I want to include an article about ordinal inscriptions and other types of tokens. So I guess I'm gonna be releasing a new version of this, because there's a community for it, there's a use case, there are people selling them outside at the merch booth. It's just that I didn't have enough time. I had a very strict deadline to send the final file. I was still working on the article, I was experimenting with the software, but I didn't have time to write this. So in a future iteration, I want to add this article about it. I'm maybe gonna get sponsors to print the magazines for their events. For example, I spoke with guys from Bitmain, and maybe that they're gonna be interested to also create their own version of it. Send magazines to Parallel Neapolis in Prague, which is the first cafe to accept Bitcoin and Litecoin for coffee, for tea, for pretty much everything that they're selling there. And it's a place where hackers go. So maybe I can get some copies printed and send them to that venue, because the European market is pretty huge. And I'm not sure if you're aware, we are in Nashville here. I guess in America, you know about companies like Coinbase Commerce and what's the other one, BitPay, and a bunch of big ones. But in Europe, there is Alza, which is the Czech version of Amazon, which accepts Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Monero, which is very impressive. And I'm from Europe, I think it's an important scene. It's important, since this is a global, decentralized form of money, to promote this beyond the usual echo chambers and try to reach out to people who maybe are not English natives, but they're going to try to understand what this is about. And I'm gonna try to print more magazines for community members and random silver pilling. I think I made a mistake there in my slides. And I'll try to maintain the project to include anything new that happens in the Litecoin space. So if there's any new proposal, if there is an interview, I actually wanted to interview David Burkett, the lead developer of MWeb, but he was not available on time for this to get produced. Maybe I will include that in a future edition. And maybe coverage of events. If someone, or if I write a summary of the summit, maybe I'm gonna include it in a future edition. My message, since there's gonna be a very orange person coming into town, is to make Litecoin great again. And I have a story about it, and this involves some keychains which have been around since 2014. Basically, the story behind these is that this guy, Rob Mitchell, printed hundreds of them. He received an order from a Litecoin developer in 2014. He made them, but the Litecoin developer never picked them up. So he kept them in his basement for 10 years. And the way in which this ties with the message of make Litecoin great again is that at the time, Litecoin was number 2 in terms of market cap. This was before Ethereum, before XRP got big, before anyone ever heard of Solana. Litecoin was number 2. And the encouragement is to spread the knowledge, develop more cool stuff, and maybe get Litecoin to be number 2 once again. And as a reminder of this mission, I'm gonna be handing you a keychain from this stash from 2014. It's historical. I think it's an artifact from the history of Litecoin, and I'm happy that I get to be part of this story because it's been 10 years in the making for these to go into the hands of the community. As you can see, it's the old logo. It's not the one that the Litecoin Foundation is using these days, which makes this even more special. This is the guy's Twitter account, if you want to follow him, because he has been doing these keychains for longer than a decade. And Charlie is aware of it. He received some from him at one point, so his account is Paperclip Robot. And yeah, they're pretty cool, and they're very high quality. I'm impressed with this. After my presentation, I'm basically gonna, I have 2.5 minutes left. I'm gonna use the time to give one of these to everyone, and also encourage you to check out the magazine, which I presented in the first part of my presentation. Thank you.